Well, hey there, folks. Hope you had an awesome weekend, and I'd like to welcome you to Unit 2. Now, Unit 2, we're going to continue our discussion based on not only the course scenario, but all the topics related to both leadership as well as ethical behavior. For your Unit 2, we're going to first focus on what's called the problem scenario A. You'll find a link in your discussion board for that scenario. That scenario goes through several items, and I covered some during the chat. But it covers several items associated with what is the potential of a conflict of interest. Could something be viewed as a bribe? And we talked about some theories and a rational model as well, and I'll get into that here in a moment. But really, you need to determine, based on what the scenario presents, what do you believe are the issues, if any. Either way, whether you think they are an issue or not, you have to obviously support your assertions to make sure, say, hey, look, I've looked at this, I've conducted the research, and we really don't have any issues. Or, yes, we definitely have some issues, and here it is based on the research I've conducted. So once you click on that link in your Unit 2 discussion board, you need to determine whether the scenario is, in fact, an ethical breach or it is not an ethical breach. How do we determine what side you'll take in this debate? Simply stated, it's the first letter of your last name. So if your first letter of your last name is A through J, so if your last name was Jones, I'll just use the traditional Smith and Jones analogy. If your last letter is between A and J, you will assume the position in the debate that this is in fact an ethical breach. Conversely, if the first letter of your last name is between K and Z, you will then assume the role that there is no ethical breach. Even if you feel different about whatever position you have to assume based on the assignment requirements, you have to defend that piece of it in the debate. You will have an opportunity when you provide your peer post to say, you know what, even though I'll use this as an example, even though I believe that I wrote that this was not an ethical breach in my main post, my gut says that it is an ethical breach, and here's why. And support that in your peer post when you comment to your peers. The things that you will discuss in your debate, again, assume the role that you've been given based on the first letter of your last name, is, does the scenario present a conflict of interest? Was there any bribery involved with the gifts that exchange hands in that scenario? As I mentioned during the chat, we talk about some ethical theories. So you will have to select an ethical theory that supports your position in that debate. And then finally, sum it all up in your discussion board with other ethical issues that are either present or potentially could be present. Next, we'll move to the Unit 2 individual project, and you will continue to discuss much of the scenario as it relates to potential conflict of interest. What sets the stage now for your Unit 2 individual project is that Bill Bateman, the CEO of the hotel chain, Peninsula Hotel Chain, has invited Joe, the salesperson for UWare, and their wives together to Bill's yacht over the weekend. So what you need to do is, once you read that scenario and you now understand that you've been invited to attend Bill and enjoy a weekend on his yacht, you need to first look at what are the potential issues there. First thing you have, the first task is to apply the rational choice model to show what are the decisions, what are the alternatives that Joe may have to make, whether or not to go accept the invitation or whatever the case may be. Now, remember, you, the student, are the consultant in this role as well. So you have actually been invited by Joe to attend over the weekend, to Bill's yacht and such. During chat, I not only talk about what the rational model is, but I provide you with a couple of examples of how to physically do the math. It's not hard, don't stress over it, but you will determine what are the attributes, what are the associated weights, and go through the mechanics of doing that. In your IntelliPath, you have links for the rational choice model. I also provide those to you in announcements and everything. So you have everything you need. There are 2 short videos there. You need to not only describe the rational choice model, you must show the math that you arrived at in terms of what decision was your ultimate decision. So the math needs to support that. Again, you decide the attributes, look at my chat slides, you see the examples, then determine what are the weights, what are the attributes, the scenario, and ultimately the highest score, or however you structure that for that matter, will determine what your decision is. Once you have your decision based on that rational choice model, you next need to identify what theory supports your decision. We talk things about care, virtue, utilitarianism, egoism, etc., etc. There are many theories there. The next task asks you to now go one step further and apply a different theory to the scenario. How would you describe that? How does it apply that theory, and so on? Finally, you need to compare and contrast the two theories that you've discussed in your individual project. And anytime you're asked in any course to compare and contrast, what does that mean? That means you've clearly identified the strengths and weaknesses of each and literally compared and contrast why one is a better choice over another. Finally, don't forget to complete your IntelliPath for Unit 2. And as always, that is a big help in terms of the learning for the week. So I hope you have an awesome week. Any questions, obviously email me on that. But have a great week, and we're moving forward. We're right on Unit 2. Take care now.